In the vibrant village of Ndembo, surrounded by vast fields and a winding river, there lived a teacher named Mrs. Adama. She was known for her gentle spirit and unwavering faith in God. Mrs. Adama wasn't just an educator. She was a mother figure to her students, guiding them not only in their studies but also in matters of morality and faith. Among her students was a young girl named Abeni. Quiet and withdrawn, Abeni rarely smiled and always kept to herself. Unknown to most, Abeni had inherited her late grandmother's powers in witchcraft, which she used to intimidate those who crossed her. She had always been at odds with Mrs. Adama, who encouraged her students to choose righteousness and shun all forms of darkness. One day, Mrs. Adama caught Abeni bullying another student. In her calm but firm manner, she reprimanded Abeni, reminding her that such behavior was unacceptable. Humiliated in front of her classmates, Abeni's heart burned with anger. She decided that Mrs. Adama needed to be taught a lesson that would leave her begging for mercy. That evening, Abeni sat in her grandmother's hut, surrounded by candles and a cauldron filled with mysterious herbs. She chanted incantations, invoking spirits to curse Mrs. Adama. "Make her weak, make her afraid, make her suffer," she whispered into the night. Not long after, strange things began to happen to Mrs. Adama. She started having nightmares of being chased by shadowy figures. At school, her chalk would break inexplicably, her books would fall off her desk, and her voice would falter during lessons. At home, objects moved on their own, and the air grew cold at night. Her health also began to deteriorate. She felt drained, as though an unseen force was sapping her strength. Despite these challenges, Mrs. Adama turned to God in prayer. "Lord, you are my refuge and my fortress. Deliver me from the snares of the enemy," she prayed every morning and night. One evening, after a particularly unsettling day, Mrs. Adama decided to confide in her pastor, Pastor Daniel. He listened carefully as she described the strange occurrences. "This is no ordinary battle, Sister Adama," he said. "You are under spiritual attack. But remember, we serve a God who is greater than any power of darkness. The weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God." Pastor Daniel and the church organized a prayer vigil for Mrs. Adama. They fasted and prayed, asking God to break every curse and expose the source of the attacks. During the vigil, as prayers filled the church, Abeni, sitting alone in her hut, began to feel uneasy. Her hands trembled and her heart raced. The spirits she had called upon turned restless, as if disturbed by a greater power. Suddenly, she saw a vision of Mrs. Adama surrounded by a radiant light, and she heard a voice say, "Touch not my anointed." Fear gripped Abeni. The spirits she had relied on were powerless against the God Mrs. Adama served. Overwhelmed by guilt and terror, Abeni ran to the church in the middle of the night, bursting through the doors. "I'm the one who cursed you," she cried, falling to her knees before Mrs. Adama. "Please forgive me." Mrs. Adama, though surprised, felt no anger toward Abeni. Instead, she knelt beside her and began to pray. "Father, forgive this child, for she knows not what she does. Deliver her from the grip of darkness and bring her into your light." The church joined in prayer, and Abeni felt the oppressive weight lift from her soul. She renounced the witchcraft she had practiced and surrendered her life to God.